Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, episode 46.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 46 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Today's sponsor is ANJRPC.com, where you can annoy an anti-gunner, embrace your inner gun nut, and do your part to defend the Second Amendment by consistently, automatically reminding your elected representatives to oppose new gun control laws. Today's guest is Scott Bach. Scott is the Executive Director of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. Scott is a Board of Director for the NRA, and now, here's Scott.
Scott Bach, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here, and congratulations on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, Scott, you are, is it the president of ANJRPC?
I am Executive Director of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs and New Jersey's only sitting member of the NRA Board of Directors.
Wow. So, can you tell us a little bit about the Association of New Jersey and Rifle Pistol Clubs?
Sure. Well, it's the official state association for New Jersey. It's a statewide organization of gun owners. It is an affiliate of the NRA for the state of New Jersey. It doesn't mean that NRA owns us or controls us, but we are affiliated by agreement with the NRA. I like to say we are NRA's face on the ground in New Jersey. We're the tip of the spear, the cutting edge, front lines, whatever you want to call it. We are tasked with carrying out the mission on the ground in New Jersey. We also are unique among state associations. Every state has one, okay, but we're unique among state associations because we also own one of the largest shooting ranges in the state. So some people know us as Cherry Ridge Range in northern New Jersey, and others know us as the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, fighter for the Second Amendment rights throughout the Garden State. But that's basically who we are.
Okay, great. And so you guys have had a lot going on in New Jersey lately. Would you like to let the rest of the world know what's been happening up here?
Sure. Well, I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said New Jersey is like the tip of the spear. We are on the front lines. Even though we have some of the worst gun laws in the United States, the folks who govern us think that the gun laws here are not strict enough. And, for a number of years they have been frustrated because we had Governor Christie in office for 8 years and he blocked pretty much all of their agenda. So they were frustrated and embarrassed by this. And so now there's an overreaction and a lot of pent-up ideas and frustrations are now being released and unleashed on law-abiding gun owners in New Jersey. So Governor Murphy is our new governor starting as of January of this year. His name is Phil Murphy. For those unfamiliar with him, he is a multimillionaire that has come out of Wall Street. He born and raised in Massachusetts, so that pretty much tells you everything you need to know. He's John Corzine on steroids. And, he was also an ambassador to Germany under the Obama administration. So he is definitely a progressive, and that's probably a kind way of saying an uber left-wing liberal. So they are on a massive attack on gun rights, and I say that very specifically. They all pay lip service to the Second Amendment. They all begin their statement saying, we support the Second Amendment, and then they go about using the bully pulpit of the executive branch and the legislative branch to attack the rights of law-abiding citizens. So what's going on in New Jersey right now is two things. The first wave of attacks has just completed, and 6 gun bills passed in New Jersey, despite overwhelming efforts by 1 million law-abiding gun owners in New Jersey. The second thing is the executive branch, just big picture, on its own, has been massively attacking right to carry, which is ironically already nearly non-existent in New Jersey, as I know you know,
Right.
James. But they've been taking various executive actions to attack right to carry and to demonize it, to make it unpopular, and to make it impossible for the average citizen to ever qualify for a right to carry permit. The bills that have passed in New Jersey are a magazine ban. They've lowered magazine capacity from 15 rounds in New Jersey, that's a restriction dating back to 1991, down to 10 rounds. And of course, this is a law that won't affect any criminal or madman, because criminals and madmen don't follow gun laws. The only people that are affected are law-abiding citizens. And we can get into the details if you want, but they also passed 2 mental health bills, which are also targeted at law-abiding citizens. I can say that because they are missing the operative features of a bill that's targeting bad guys. One is advanced due process. Before your gun rights and your firearms are taken away, you ought to have advanced due process. And the other thing is there is no punishment for somebody who fabricates allegations that result in loss of firearms or gun rights. Then there's a bill that seeks to permanently make it impossible to qualify for a right to carry permit. And then we have 2 silly laws that really add nothing. One of them ostensibly is a ban on armor-piercing ammunition, but they basically copied and pasted the federal definition and the pre-existing federal ban, which has been the law of the land for a very long time. They copied and pasted it into New Jersey law. So that changes nothing. And then they have imposed a requirement of background checks for private sales that already require background checks. How brilliant is that? Okay, they took their national template and said, let's put it in New Jersey where we know we can pass it, ignoring the fact that in New Jersey, lawful private sales could occur before, but only after having had a background check. So go figure with that.
Yeah, it is strange how they kind of come up with these things as if they didn't already know the laws that they had. Now, I hear you say something from time to time that the Constitution is not enforcing, and growing up in New Jersey, I can see that, or not self-enforcing, sorry. I can see that, but I don't know the rest of the country realizes. I think they see these things pass and they think, oh, it'll just go to the Supreme Court and it'll be fine. Could you talk about that a little and why that might not be the best strategy for defense?
Absolutely. Okay, so, well, let's just start with the basic premise. The Constitution is not self-enforcing. Wherever you are, whoever's listening to this, I don't care whether you're in Arizona, Montana, Texas, one of the toughest strongholds for the Second Amendment in the United States. What happens when people who have no regard for the Constitution decide to just pass whatever they darn well please, right? Well, what happens is they pass these laws, and those become the laws until somebody does something about it. Merely because something is unconstitutional, there's no magic wand that is waved that invalidates these laws. So if your lawmakers get out of bounds, it requires effort to overcome that. And in the absence of taking that effort, that's going to be the law that you're under. And most people don't realize that. People in free states, have more of a faith in the Constitution and in their lawmakers to follow the Constitution, but in lawless places like New Jersey and California and Illinois where there's just a feeding frenzy to demonize and to end private gun ownership, that's not the case. They do what they want and the burden's on you. And then, surprise, surprise, sometimes the Supreme Court doesn't take up these laws. And it can be decades until they do. I mean, how long did it take for the Heller and McDonald cases, to come to the fore? And I mean, here's an example that really should wake people up to this. Until Heller and McDonald, technically in New Jersey, there was no Second Amendment. That's one of New Jersey's dirty little secrets. You go, well, how can that be? Well, because there were a number of cases brought by well-meaning activists, but at the wrong time, that, for example, New Jersey has an assault firearms ban since 1991 that's still in place today. It was originally challenged, and when it was challenged, there wasn't a pro-Second Amendment majority on the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, this ban was challenged. It was defeated. The challenge was defeated in the lower and the middle level appeals courts, and then everybody thought, oh, well, the Supreme Court's going to fix that. Well, they went to the Supreme Court. Guess what? The Supreme Court denied taking the case. And it's called certiorari. When you ask the Supreme Court to take up a case, it's called cert or certiorari. So they denied certiorari on that. And what is the net effect of that? For decades, the lower down precedent from the middle level court was the law of New Jersey. And they said that the Second Amendment was a right that belonged to the state, to the militia argument, okay, that failed federally since then. But technically, most people didn't realize this, there was no Second Amendment recognized in New Jersey, not until Heller and McDonald. That should horrify you. But what's even more horrifying is that Heller and McDonald was a 5-4 decision, and I'm speaking of the case that established two fundamental principles. Number one, that you can't prevent somebody from having a handgun in their home for personal defense, okay? So you can't ban handguns. And the second case, McDonald merely established that applies throughout every state, okay? And that decision was 5-4. Well, since that time, there have been a number of attempts, including in New Jersey, to get the Supreme Court to take up a right to carry challenge. And the Supreme Court, up until now, has absolutely declined to take it up. So this notion of a magic wand and everything's going to be fine, if you have lawless people running things, it's going to be quite the opposite. Their law will be the law until you can convince the Supreme Court otherwise. And New Jersey, you can be an example or a warning. New Jersey should be a warning to everybody else on that, James.
Yes. Yeah. And, it's like you said, it could take 20 years and millions of dollars. And if you happen to be the person that, that's going to fight that case and you're charged with a crime, that's 20 years where you can't buy a gun, can't, hard to find a job, and all of those things that go along with being accused of a crime for 20 years of your life. And, and even if you're not, that's 20 years that you're living under that, under that law while you try and fight it. And
absolutely.
And there's no consequence unless I've missed it, right? For politicians, if they write 20 unconstitutional laws and they're still alive when they're overturned, it's not like they go to jail now or they lose their seat or anything like that. They just go on business as usual.
Well, you nailed that one right on the head. That is absolutely right. There is really no recourse for the past grievances. There's a doctrine called sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity applies everywhere to varying degrees, but it basically means the government can't be sued unless it consents to be sued. And believe it or not, there are circumstances where it consents to be sued or agrees to be sued. But civil rights violations like denial of Second Amendment rights is not one of them. And this protects lawmakers, okay? And New Jersey has one of the most aggressive sovereign immunity clauses of all the 50 states. So they essentially get to act with no consequence. Honestly, if you want to look at what our government has become, we're masquerading as a republic, but we're more like an oligarchy. The people in charge are unaccountable. They're often exempt from their own dictates to everyone else, and there's no consequence for it. It's a little scary how far we have drifted in this country, and certainly within the state of New Jersey. And there are people, drift is probably the wrong word. There are people rowing very hard in that direction. There are people trying to fundamentally change who and what we are as a nation. And that has to stop because, by the time we've awakened to it, we're already pretty far downstream. And now, there's a current trying to pull us there, and we've got to fight that current. I like to say, kill the monster while it's still little. Once it gets bigger, it's harder to slay. And this is definitely a monster that threatens all of us. And we better wake up to that. a lot of us feel like we're free because we own guns and can shoot off fireworks on the 4th of July. We better wake up and look at some of the other things that have changed in this country, the incursions on the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. There are people trying to undermine our entire system and our structure. They pay lip service to it like they pay it to the Second Amendment, but if you look at what they're doing, if you look at how the U.S. Supreme Court has even drifted to some of the outrageous decisions, the Kelo case in particular, on which essentially said the government can take your property for commercial purposes, not for some government benefit to society, but to increase tax revenue. Where you have the U.S. Supreme Court looking to international law for guidance in making decisions on U.S. matters, and they're looking to international law because socialism has taken over largely in large pockets of the world. So it's a way of bootstrapping socialist approaches to the law into American jurisprudence. It's frightening what is going on, and I know you know this. You of all people who, I mean, you know better than most what it's like to have your free speech trampled on.
Right. Yeah. And it is kind of shocking. And I guess that kind of brings me to my next question of, for people that are still in free states, what advice would you have for them on keeping it that way?
You've got to be vigilant. You cannot give an inch. Let me tell you, there was a time when, believe it or not, there was a time when New Jersey was a free state. There was a time when, there were high school shooting teams and kids put their, teenagers brought their .22 rifles to school and put them in their locker, okay? And anybody could get a carry permit. And that's absolutely the truth. Well, I'm telling you, folks, there are people out there, and they're infiltrating the rest of the country that want to bring this progressive agenda in which gun rights do not fit. Okay, I mean, just look, big picture, this isn't about conspiracies. The people with this worldview, private gun ownership is not compatible. Where the state is everything and the individual is nothing, there is no place for private gun ownership. And they are there in your state right now. And their plan is not a 3-year plan. It's not a 5-year plan. It's a generational plan. It's a decades-long plan. And the way it happens is tick by tick by tick, bit by bit by bit. There's slight incursion and a little more and a little more and a little more. There's also migration out of mass population centers. You can change the demographic over 15 or 20 years, through gradual migration. I mean, within the country, like people from, Los Angeles or California, migrating to other free states and poisoning them. Very much like some of what you've seen. Some people may take offense to this, but in a place like Montana, we've seen a lot of that. A lot of Californians migrating to Montana and bringing their infected ideology with them. So here's the takeaway. Wherever you are, you have to know that threat is real. Complacency is the biggest enemy. And if you are complacent, you're going to wake up one day and go, what happened? How did we get here? You can't be complacent. You have to know where you are, which is you're in a great place if you're in a free state. But if you want to keep it free, you've got to have even more urgency than we do in New Jersey. You have to beat back every tiny little incursion, because if you don't, it's going to be one more and one more and one more. It's going to stack on it, and one day critical mass is going to go the wrong way, and you're going to wake up and say what happened. So vigilance is critical. And I would say, like Pennsylvania is an example of a place that's in transition right now. Gun owners are very, the complaint I hear a lot in Pennsylvania is that gun owners think they're fine. They think everything's going to be fine. They're not really worried. And so when threats come up, they're not prepared for them.
Right.
And that is what leads to, like, what happened in Vermont recently, where suddenly sweeping gun controls were passed overnight. Everybody woke up and said, what happened? anyway, I don't mean to belabor the point, but vigilance is everything. Everybody's got to step up and not wait until it's too late.
And what can people do to help out New Jersey?
Okay. Well, for Jersey residents and even non-residents, I mean, the answer to that is crystal clear. Number one, you've got to join gun rights organizations and support them. Even if you feel like, well, I don't have time or I don't have the inclination to go fight the fight myself, you've got to support the organizations that do. That means supporting NRA. That means supporting the ANJRPC, Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, which currently has 2 lawsuits pending, one on right to carry, the other against this new magazine ban that's passed, and there's more coming. And of course, donate to the cause. And if you have a different organization that you want to support, go right ahead and do it. But you can't sit back on the sidelines. The other thing you've got to do is sign up for free email alerts from ANJRPC. Okay, you go to our website. I know it's an earful and a mouthful. ANJRPC.org. You can sign up right there for free email alerts. When there is a threat to gun rights, we will email you and tell you what the threat is. We'll give you early warning. We'll tell you who to call and what to say. You will know what's happening well in advance with time to try to do something about it. So support organizations, get informed, support the kind of work you're doing. You know, I don't know what kind of financial needs you have, James, for doing this podcast or this show, but you know, gun owners have to do something. Anyway, sorry, long-winded answer to a simple question.
Oh, that was great. Thank you. And so I've been asking all of my guests if there are books they recommend that gun owners read, whether they be about liberty or guns or training or anything.
Well, I do, but my answer is going to be surprising to you.
Okay.
I highly recommend reading the Bible on this issue, okay?
All right.
Because, listen, the other side has tried to co-opt that. And they've tried to make it seem like if you're a gun person or a gun rights advocate that you're against biblical principles, which is actually the furthest thing from the truth. If you dig in, you will find that quite the opposite is true. And turn the other cheek doesn't mean that you have to submit to evil, okay, or be obliterated by evil. In fact, one of the most little known but very interesting quotes is from Luke, okay? It was at the Last Supper, okay? And here's the quote. This is Jesus talking now. Quote, "If you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." Okay, most people don't realize that.
Right.
Okay? You know, being meek and, you know, trying to resolve things through nonviolence doesn't mean that you're supposed to submit to evil. And people need to know that. So there you go for a little unconventional and maybe unexpected answer to your question there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And where can people find you guys online?
Again, it's for the association, it's ANJRPC.org, ANJRPC.org. We're also on Facebook. And we've got I believe we have a YouTube page with videos and or you can just Google Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs.
Oh, great. God, thank you very much for being on the show. Any parting words for our guests? Well,
just stay vigilant, fight the good fight. There are people like in New Jersey on the tip of the spear who keep fighting with everything they have despite overwhelming odds. You can never give up. You've got to always fight. And for those of you lucky enough to be in a free state, you need to get ahead of the curve and not let people take away your rights there. You're in a much better position. Don't become a warning like New Jersey.
Great. Thank you. And thank you again for being on the show, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, and good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in to episode 46 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Please head over to the show notes page, outoforderdameskalita.com/ANJRPC, and you'll see links to Scott Bach's website, to ANJRPC, to the books we discussed, and You'll also find links to our sponsors. Amazon.com affiliate links where you could help the show at no additional cost to you. Of course, Liberty Classroom where you get the history and economics lessons they didn't teach you in high school. And Liberty Maniacs where they have some really great 2A and pro-liberty shirts and accessories that get for yourself. Please head over to the show notes page, Out of Order James Kalita /ANJRPC, and remember to check out www.nagyarrep.com for your free guide. Out of Order James Kalita. We'll see you next time.